Welcome to A Good Life with Soul Haven, presented by Gregg, Samuel Yisrael, and Natasha, the loving chef.
Welcome to another edition of A Good Life at Soul Haven with myself, Gregg, and we have Natasha, the loving chef, and Gareth, all the way from sunny Spain, with us today. Hello, guys.
Hey, Chris, how are you?
I'm brilliant. I'm enjoying the weather this week because it's slightly less hot than it has been. Although, looking out the window today, I think it's getting nice and warm again, which is good. But the weather in Spain has just been insane on the plane, hasn't it, Gareth?
Oh, it's been shocking. We're having what they call a golpe de calor, which is basically a slap of heat. And it has been really, really hot, up in the high 30s. So
Oh, wow.
it's been a bit, but it's Spain. We do our best to survive.
You feel like you've been slapped everywhere that there's skin. Yeah.
It is. Even when you put the fan on, it blows hot air on you.
Oh, no, I know. I hate that. That's such a great expression, though, a slap of heat, because that's exactly how you feel. Especially when you walk into a hot room and you just realise that all the heat's been rising up your house, and your bedroom is now like a sauna. It's just horrible. Yeah.
It's crazy. But
you get through it.
yes.
And
Yes.
how are things at Soul Haven, Natasha?
Soul Haven is really good, thank you, and it's great to be back. Yes, enjoying a little bit of the cooler weather after our little taster session of what Gareth has to go through for a lot longer time than we do over here in the UK. So yeah, I'm happy again today.
This is good. So today we're going to be discovering the food brain, which is a very clever tool that Gareth uses to explore cooking from a kind of a scientific and an artistic angle. So the art, the science, the psychology, and the love of cooking, which sounds very interesting. So I'm looking forward to getting stuck into the food brain, and also going to be looking at how that ties into our permaculture principle for this week, number 12, explore what we call our eating philosophy. So that is coming up with Gareth, and Natasha has a lovely recipe this week involving courgettes and garlic.
Yes, absolutely. We're abundant with courgettes at the moment. So, yeah, just a little quick recipe all about courgettes that anybody can really do. It's really, really is basic, but it tastes amazing.
I like to call them baby marrows because, of course, they are the same as marrows, just smaller, as everybody knows. Except me last time. It was news to me. And I told my wife, I was like, did you know? She's like, yeah, everybody knows that, Chris. I was like, okay. I was today years old when I discovered that fact. Okay, so let's get started with an introduction to Soul Haven. Natasha, do you want to take the baton there and tell us all about the magical place that is Soul Haven?
Oh, bless you. Thank you. So, yes, the Soul Haven. We're based in Malton, just outside Northampton. Soul Haven is an award-winning community centre committed to building sustainable people. We believe that sustainability isn't just about the planet or the garden and things, but it's also about the people. And it's also very deeply personal to what we do up here in Soul Haven. Our sole mission is very simple. Is to share practical tools, techniques, resources and experiences that people can help reconnect with themselves, and also the nature within themselves as well, and their internal garden, empowering them to become wholly sustainable, happier and healthier.
Amazing. And it does exactly what it says on the tin. And people have their lives transformed, don't they, from that experience. It really does help people turn things around, and sometimes it can be the catalyst that you need to kind of start a new chapter.
Absolutely it is. And we see, we're very humbled because we see so many different people transform from where they were. So if they're joining Play on the Mind course, where they were on week 1 to where they are on week 12, they're like a whole different person, not just externally, but internally as well. So yeah, it's very humbling what we do here.
Absolutely. And you are the embodiment of humbleness. So it's all about just letting people express themselves and be who they are and being authentic, isn't it? Which is lovely.
Absolutely.
So we do this every single time here on A Good Life at Soul Haven. And I think the first thing that we like to touch on is what's going on in the garden, because that kind of grounds everything, gives us a real feeling for for what time of year it is, what's going on, kind of seasonal focus, and how are things looking right now in the garden there outside?
Oh my gosh, the garden is amazing, I have to say. It has survived the heat wave so far. So yes, but lots and lots and lots is happening in the garden. We're enjoying the wonderful growth of so many things that are sprouting and going from this little tiny seed that we did and talked about even 4 or 5 weeks ago to where they are today. So yes, so the courgettes are flourishing. They are more than flourishing. They are producing so many courgettes we really can't keep up with ourselves along the way. So yeah, very, very plentiful right now. I'm finding lots and lots of different ways on how to use the courgettes and things. So yeah, so courgettes are amazing though. They're a beautiful plant. They're a beautiful vegetable as well, and they're very, very good for us. They're full of vitamin C, vitamin A, vitamin K, all of the B vitamins as well, you know, so it helps our immune systems, it helps our eyes, and it helps our immune function. Courgettes are really good if you've got high blood sugars as well, because it helps lower the blood sugars along the way, and it's got things like potassium, magnesium, copper in there as well. So yeah, they're very low in calories, which is always really helpful because they're 95% water. So
I was going to say that because they're so juicy, and that you kind of feel like they're just storing water in the garden there, and just adding all of these great vitamins and minerals and things in there as well. So yeah, it's a great source of refreshment on a hot day like this.
Yeah, absolutely. So when it was really, really hot, we were eating quite a lot of them because they're just such a good way to hydrate. Excuse me, they're just such a good way to hydrate along the way. So yeah, absolutely incredible. And of course they've got beautiful flowers, and you can eat the flowers as well as eating the courgette or the marrow along the way as well. So yes, the courgettes are happening. Tomatoes, I'm very excited about tomatoes. We've got like little tiny tomatoes coming up now, little cherry tomatoes along the way. Now is the time that we take off the underleaves of our tomato plants. So the rule of thumb is if you take off the leaves of the tomato plants that are not growing the actual tomatoes, the plants can then thrive and give the energy towards the fruit of the tomato, rather than growing masses and masses and masses of leaves, because that's all it really wants to do along the way. So yeah, so we're busy doing that this next coming week.
That's good. And how long does it take for the tomato to go from the first time you spot it to being ready to pick?
In this weather, we're talking about 3 weeks, 4 weeks tops.
Oh, no, it grows fast.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really does. They really do grow fast. They like a lot of feed. They like a lot of water. So we give our tomato plants the banana feed. I think we've spoken about that before, to do with the banana peels and soaking them and then using the banana water to actually feed the...
That's clever. Do you end up with yellow tomatoes then?
Oh, great question.
No, that's all right then.
Banana-tasting, banana-flavoured tomatoes.
That could be great though. I would love to try that. Just somewhere in between.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Gosh,
but they
what
love the
else?
banana food.
Yeah, they love the banana food. They really do love the banana food. So yeah, so we eat lots and lots of bananas up here at Solhaven. So yeah, all is well there.
Yeah.
Gosh, what else is happening? Oh, the landcress is thriving. So that's an amazing plant as well. So yeah, it's very vibrant. But because we don't use any chemicals or anything, it's really peppery and it's really tangy in the mouth. But it's a little feisty, but we can get over that.
I like the sound of that. I like a nice peppery cress. That sounds good.
Yeah, it's really, really good. And again, they're packed with vitamins and minerals. So, you know, it's helping us along the way as well. So, yeah, really, really good.
And does that just spread over the area wherever it can? It's just you plant a bit, and it's just before you know it, you've got like a carpet of cress.
Yes, absolutely. And the more you harvest it, the more it grows. So I'm very happy with that. So yeah, I'll go and harvest. We do ours in rows. I don't know. I go and harvest a row of at a time, and then it goes in everything. It goes in my smoothies. It goes in salads. I chop it up and make like a landcress pesto with it. Yeah, lots and lots and lots of things that you can do with it. It's one of the most beneficial foods that is grown because of all of its content. So yeah, happy days. Yeah,
it's there doesn't seem to have a lot of root, does it, cress? No. It's just you pick it and that's it. It's just got a little dot at the end of it that it grows from. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, but it is thirsty. Yeah, the landcress is a very thirsty plant as well. And obviously, in these times, when do we water, when do we not water and things as well. So yeah, it becomes a ritual at the end of the day for watering and things. So yeah.
Yeah, it will grow anywhere.
Say again?
Really is. I was going to say it will grow anywhere, because I remember during our student days somebody played a prank on someone and just before the school holidays just sprinkled cress all over their carpet in their bedroom, and then they came back and they had this beautiful living carpet going on there. But yeah, it's quite happy to grow anywhere.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
That really is brilliant.
Student practical jokes.
The things we do, hey?
Yeah. I hope it all got eaten. I don't know. I didn't really hear the end of hear what the consequences were, but
as long as it's not sucking up all of the things that are debris in the carpet area.
Oh yeah, you don't want to eat that.
No, don't want to eat that. Student accommodation and all that.
Yeah, no, that could be highly toxic. Anyway, so back to the garden.
Yes.
And we were talking last time about your rain storage system and just being ready for the next heat wave when it does rain again.
Yeah, so we can store 600,000. Thank you. 600,000 litres of water. Are we getting close to the limit? Absolutely we are. For those of you who are listening, obviously we haven't had rain for a while, and when it does rain, we don't get a lot of it and things. So, yeah, it's
we had a few thunderstorms a week or two ago, didn't we?
Did you?
Maybe that was just
we got none. We actually went out. It started raining, I don't know, Wednesday of this last week. And all the staff went outside and we all did like a little celebration
rain
dance. And it lasted for 4 minutes. And that was it.
What, the dance or the rain? Both.
The rain. That was it. It's like, oh, okay, you stopped again.
I think your dancing must have been terrible. You need to practice. You'd had the opposite effect. You were doing a sun dance, maybe.
Yeah. Yes. But it's really important to think about how to water the garden, when to water the garden and things. So let's go through these. Watering, timing. So we water in the morning or we water late at night. I tend to water late at night to finish the day. It's really
No, we're talking about the garden rather than bladder habits here. So sorry, just to make that clear.
Yeah, so let's talk about watering the garden. Timing is everything. Watering early in the morning or very late in the evening. Midday watering, there's no point because it just gets evaporated. So all you're doing is the sun is soaking up the water. What else? Go deep. So plants like to drink properly, not just like a quick splash along the way. So when you are watering, water around the plant, a good soak of water rather than and that's it, and you think you've watered for the day. And you don't have to water every single day. I don't water every day. There's a nice little routine that I've got into that goes around the garden. I'll do this day, and then I'll do the polytunnel this day and things like that. So get yourself into a routine of where are you going to water.
Because I think that's one of the things that I struggle with when I'm watering plants is knowing when you've done enough, and can you overwater plants? I know you can with house plants, but maybe in the garden it will just soak into the soil.
Yeah, it will. The roots will actually take what it needs, and then obviously, excuse me, obviously then once it's had enough water, it'll close its like little drinking straws, and it'll go, okay, I don't need that. That can go by the by along the way. So yeah, it's really interesting to actually observe plants and how they do drink and how they absorb the water and what it looks like after they've had a good soaking of water rather than a quick little sprinkle. And of course you want to aim towards the roots rather than the leaves.
Yeah, this is something I didn't know either. So my wife would tell me off because I thought that the plant liked getting nice and wet and having water all over its leaves, and it was like a nice little shower for it and nice and refreshing, but apparently that's pointless. So you just need to just water the soil.
Yeah,
don't worry about
water
watering the
soil.
leaves.
Yeah, and especially at this time of year when the sun is hot. So if you're watering the leaves, the water residue will stay on the leaves, and then the water will heat up with the heat of the sun, and it can actually burn the little leaves.
Oh
And
no,
then
I
you
feel
get
awful
little
now.
patches. Yeah, so always aim for the aim for the root.
I thought I was helping and I'm torturing those poor little plants.
Yeah,
Right,
it's like,
aim for the roots.
a little shower. Yeah, because of course you water, house plants love their leaves to get wet.
Oh, okay, right,
Yeah.
okay.
I say let's say, retract that, most houseplants enjoy their leaves getting wet, but externally outside, just aim for the root.
I mean, to be fair, I don't think I'd like my leaves getting wet. If I was just sat there minding my own business and somebody started watering me, I just feel like, hang on,
Yeah.
I'm fine,
bless.
just water my feet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's really good. We've learnt a lot over the years about storing water, and getting a water butt is just really easy. They're very easy to attach to your down pipe on your house, or if you've got a garden shed along the way. So yeah, I'd recommend installing at least one water butt, so you can collect the water so it's good to go in when it's the sunshine along the way. So yeah. So that's the little garden update. As much as I could go on for hours and hours about the garden because there's so much going on, but we'll save that ready for next time.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really important topic at the moment with all the hot weather. It's just making sure that you're watering your garden effectively, and that you are helping rather than hindering when you're out there with your hose pipe, because you don't want to waste water, but at the same time you want to make sure that everything stays alive. So it's just getting that balance right.
Definitely.
Thank you very much. You're listening to A Good Life at Soul Haven, and it's time for Gareth now, live from España, to tell us about permaculture principle number 12, which is creatively use and respond to change, and how that relates to eating and food, which fascinates me.
Buenas tardes. Hey,
Olé!
everybody. Ole! Well, like Natasha was saying, the human body is also like a garden. So when we understand how the garden works, that we need to water it regularly, that we need to feed it regularly, we can kind of like tie in our eating habits and our eating principles into the permaculture principles. And permaculture principle number 12 is quite interesting because it's all about using and responding to change. And I think that we can all relate to it, how our diet or our eating habits changes, not only with how we feel emotionally or mentally and physically, but also how we feel during the different seasons. So in spring, I'm going to have very different cravings for food than what I'm going to have in winter. So when we start to understand how it relates to the principle, which is all about adaptability and innovation, it's a lot easier. Instead of kind of like resisting change in our lives, the principles of permaculture, they kind of like invite us to observe it and to understand the patterns that we have and then to use it as a catalyst to create our own creative solutions. So we want to see how these can apply through food, and then I'm going to introduce you to kind of like the food brain and explain what it's all about. Um, for those of you that are listening, yes, a lot of times I do talk about mental health and the mindset of things, but one thing that I'm also really, really passionate about is food and is cooking. I have written and published 2 recipe books that are available. I'm really proud of them because they were a lot of hard work. But also doing the recipes and putting the recipes together, I wanted to create a resource that people had that they could find a recipe for kind of like depending on how they felt. So when we look at food and the permaculture principle, we have seasonal eating. Like I was saying, things we eat in spring and summer will be very different to things that we eat in autumn and winter. And when we kind of like look at nature and how things grow, naturally things with lower calories are grown in spring and summer. So like Natasha was talking about the courgettes and the tomatoes and that sort of stuff, they're high in nutrients, but they're low in calories. So we can eat a lot more of them. Whereas in winter and autumn, when we think about the things that are grown in winter and autumn, we have kind of like our root vegetables, potatoes, and all those sort of things, which still are high in nutrients. They're higher in the nutrients that the body naturally needs in winter, but they're also higher in calories because we need to burn those extra calories to also keep warm and that sort of stuff. So it's important to kind of like look at, seasonal growth. Our diet also changes through our changing health needs. We're not always, and we strive to be healthy all of the time, but naturally we not are always healthy all of the time. Sometimes we do get ill, sometimes we do go through periods of stress that affect the body. So as our body goes through these kind of like changes, we also need to look at our eating patterns. Things like life transitions, let's just look at some of the big ones, when families become parents, when a new child comes into the family, there's less time to focus on food and that, but we also start eating very differently. Sometimes work will take up a lot more of our time. So we don't have as much time to put into the cooking. So when we approach our kind of like meal planning, it's important to look at those sort of things. And then the last one that I just want to touch upon is kind of like emotional eating habits. We all have emotional eating habits, whether we realize it or not. The human body gets hungry for 2 main reasons. The first one is because it's low in nutrients and energy. So we crave food to get nutrients and energy. And the second one is that we want to fill an emotional need. Because when we eat, the act of eating is going to create hormones in the body that we get. So we're either hungry for nutrients or energy, or we're hungry for the chemicals that come out as a result of the emotions that we're going through. So that's kind of like how eating relates to the permaculture principle.
That's very interesting, and I think those are all different, very important different aspects. But it's right what you say about the different ways that we eat, and eating for nutrition is very different from eating for mental health, but it can help both ways. We just got to kind of keep tabs on things. Do you think that people have their own sort of personal food philosophies, and how can you start to understand what your one might be?
Absolutely. So this is something that I call my food brain. And it's kind of like a tool that I've created over the years based on all the questions that people ask me. And it goes into kind of like the art, the science, the psychology, and the love of cooking. It's kind of like, you can see it's kind of like a Russian doll. So it has all these.
So it's a box that's got other
Yeah.
boxes within,
So it's all
cubes
these.
and things written on each side.
So it's all these cubes that you go through to look at eating and each of those elements. So one of the things that I kind of like want to talk about to help us to start our food philosophy is, before we understand it, we need to look at where we learn to eat. because the way that we eat has been taught to us through life circumstances. If you think about it, if I, as a parent, don't like something and don't like preparing it, I'm not really going to feed it to a child, if that makes sense. So the first place that we learn to eat from is from our family. You know, from an early age, we get taught what to eat, and quite simply, we eat what our parents give us because we don't have the conscious ability to make choice. But what sometimes happens is that I do believe that we are born with certain predispositions. So if a child doesn't like the way that a food feels in its mouth, or it doesn't like the taste that it naturally gets from it, it's going to reject it or it's going to spit it out. The natural response for a parent will be to say, come on, eat your food, and make it eat the food. Also, children don't know the size of their stomachs, if that makes sense. So when they get full, they naturally spit the food out because they can't actually ingest any more. But we as a parent, knowingly or unknowingly, continue to feed it based on how much we think that we should eat, how much we think that they should eat. So these sort of things kind of like are taught to us. We're taught how much to eat, we're taught what to eat, and that sort of stuff. And it can be often passed down from generation to generation. Um, my mom will feed me the same way that potentially her mom fed her. You know, if we go to the shops and we look at all the baby foods are the same. So all the babies are getting fed the same thing. Um, so, you know, if we want to understand that our predominant education is coming from family and all that, we can ask ourselves a few things. You know, do I find myself eating the same thing over and over again because it's all that I know? Um, you know, do I cook the same kind of food that was cooked for me when I was growing up? You know, our parents cook these meals for us, so we naturally go into it and we start cooking the same thing. Or a common one is kind of like, are there family traditions that are strictly adhered to? Um, so that's one of the places that we can learn to eat from. Another one that we can see where we learn to eat from is our culture. Um, all around the world, we grow up in different cultures, and different cultures eat very differently. You know, we can see that there's so many different types of restaurants with so many different types of cuisines. Um, you know, sometimes I'll go to an Indian restaurant, sometimes I'll go to a Turkish restaurant, sometimes I'll go to the Italian restaurant. And, you know, those kinds of foods are very different from restaurant to restaurant. If I am a cultural eater, I'm going to predominantly eat those kind of things. You know, sometimes if I reject cultural eating, I can, and this is something that I struggled with when I moved from Zimbabwe to live in London and then to live in Spain. I really struggled to try different food um, because it was so different from what I was used to, and it was so different to what I was eating being brought up. Um, so we learn from our culture as well. Um, we learn socially. Um, I'm going to eat roughly the same as my circle of friends eat. You know, if I look at it, when I go out with my friends, we all tend to order the same thing, or we all tend to like the same kind of meals and all that. But we can sometimes feel pressurized into eating a certain way. Um, I'm sure we've all been in situations where we've kind of like gone out and someone has said, "Oh, come on, just have a dessert." Or come on, just try mine, or just have another one, or whatever it is. So we can be peer pressure taught. Does that, you know, another really big one, and I think that this kind of like has a lot to blame for the eating challenges that people have. We learn to eat from the media. You know, we see the adverts on TV, we see the adverts in magazines, we go on social media and it's kind of like, oh, come on, try this food or do this diet or don't do this, or this is good for you and that's bad for you and that's bad. There's so much conflicting information, but we will be drawn to wherever we resonate the most. So media, in my opinion, has a lot to kind of like blame for a lot of, I'm not going to say eating disorders, but I'm going to say disordered eating. That's media. The next two are really important ones. We learn to eat from emotions. Um, our emotions that we go through are going to point us in a certain direction. So look at it like this, you know, if when we are a little child and we do something good, we get rewarded with a treat. And when we do something naughty, we get our treats withheld from us. What happens is we kind of like create an emotional attachment to those things. So the older we get, even though we're not a little child getting punished anymore, we're still going to naturally turn to those things. So emotions have a lot to play with our eating education. And then the last one, and I think that this is kind of like one of the most powerful ones, we learn to eat from experimentation. We get to a point in our lives where we're sick and tired of feeling sick and tired. Enough is enough. Our health is struggling. Maybe we want to lose weight. Maybe we've been diagnosed with some sort of illness and we need to make changes. We then kind of like start to experiment with different things. At first, experimentation is going to be difficult because we don't know what to do. So then we start learning from some of the other things. So once we start to understand, if you look at your eating habits as they are now and detach yourself from it, and you can say to yourself, well, who or what taught me to eat the way that I eat? That's the first step towards understanding our own personal food philosophy.
That is great. And obviously, I think when you're doing your sessions with your clients, you talk through that process and help them understand for themselves. But
Yeah,
I think everybody's different, aren't they? And everybody
yeah,
approaches food in different ways and has different different motivations. Out of those ones that you've talked about, some will be stronger than others. And I
yeah,
guess it's just working out where you sit within that
yeah,
kind of whole, which is
yeah.
so interesting. And then how do you use that information to adapt your behavior afterwards?
Well, once you've started to kind of like look at them, you know, like the permaculture principle says, creatively use and respond to change. We can start kind of like, keeping a food journal. A food journal is a really, really good thing. You know, if you want to make changes to your eating habits and to your lifestyle, keeping a food journal is really, really good. I say to people when I start working with them at the beginning, don't change anything right away. Let's just start looking at the habits. So continue eating the way that you've been eating for a week or two, but every time you eat, ask yourself, why am I eating this? What does what I am eating mean to me? What does it give to me? Because once we've started to track those and see the common themes, we can kind of like start unlearning what we've learned. A lot of things with eating habits, we don't realize that we've learned them. We don't realize that we've been taught them. Everything that we do in life has been taught to us, whether it's by people, situations, whatever it is. But in order for us to kind of like be creative and start creating some sort of change, we not need to start creating a list of why we do certain things. So that is what I would say would be the first step.
Oh, that's great. Well, thank you very much for that, Gareth. And if you want to find out more about that, then obviously have a look on the Soul Haven website, reach out to Gareth, and definitely have a look at your books as well. The cooking books have got, it's more than just recipes, isn't it? It's sort of using that as part of a sort of a holistic approach to how you live your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, sounds good. You're listening to A Good Life at Soul Haven, and it's time now, as we've been talking about food, it's starting to make my tummy rumble. So let's let's get some good habits with Natasha's recipe of the week. And this week, it's two of my favourite flavours combined, garlic and lemon, and our star vegetable of the week, the courgette.
Brilliant. It's a good combo, isn't it? It's a really good combination of flavours.
I think you know a
Okay.
good recipe when just the title of the recipe makes your mouth water before you've even told me what it is. I'm already wanting this.
Brilliant. So it is really a simple recipe. Especially if you've it's a recipe that's really diverse, especially if you've got an abundance of courgettes like us. God bless him. Samuel's always just like eating, what's for dinner? Courgettes. What's for dinner? Courgette rice. What is for dinner? Courgette and things. But this recipe is garlic and lemon courgette ribbons. And it is very, very easy. So you get your courgettes. So if you want 2 or 3 servings, 2 medium courgettes, a clove of garlic that's been chopped, a tablespoon of olive oil or any other vegetable oil. It doesn't have to be olive oil. Zest and juice of half a lemon, or if you're like me, I'm very lemony, so I would probably use about 1 lemon rather than the half. A handful of freshly chopped parsley. Now, if you don't have parsley, you can use basil. That's also another really good one with courgettes. Salt and pepper to taste. And then if you want to, you can sprinkle over chopped nuts or seeds, like your pumpkin seeds or your sunflower seeds. So, how do you do this? Great question.
It was exactly the question I was about to ask you. How do you do this?
How do you put all this together? Yeah, so prepare the courgettes. Now, you can either peel your courgettes and keep peeling so you get to the very fine ribbons of courgettes. If you don't have a peeler, you can also cut them into very fine slices of round courgettes. It doesn't really matter which way. I like the ribbons just because it looks pretty on a plate. But they all taste the same whatever way you do chop them. And then you want to heat the oil into a frying pan or a saute pan and add in the garlic. Now, when you're cooking with the garlic, you want to just very, very briefly fry the garlic so it doesn't burn, because burnt garlic tastes very different from fried or sautéed garlic. And just cook it for about 30 seconds just to get the fragrance out and the rawness of the garlic out. And then pop in your rounds of courgettes or your ribbons of courgettes. Toss them gently for about 2 or 3 minutes.
Do you have to take the garlic out at that point so it doesn't burn? Or can you leave it in the pan?
Yeah, keep it in. Yeah. Toss it around in the oil for 2 or 3 minutes, just until they soften and they've still got like a little bite. So professional term is like al dente. Turn off the heat, squeeze in your lemon and add your lemon zest and your herbs, whether that's basil and parsley, a bit of salt and pepper. Mix it all up together and voila, you have got a side dish of courgettes. Now, if you want to do something slightly different with them, like I say, you can put your nuts and your seeds in there. You're going to have it as side dish, or you can add it on top of, even on top of like a cooked pizza, and that on top would be amazing. Mix it up with your pasta. Serve it on warm toast. Maybe put your toast and then hummus on the bottom, and then put the courgettes over the top and drizzle it with a bit of raw lemon juice and maybe a bit of tahini, and you've got just something that's very light, very beautiful, very nutritious, and very quick and easy to do. So yeah,
sounds good.
Yeah.
Could you make?
My mouth is watering. Actually, it's like it's just like, okay, perhaps we'll do that for dinner tonight.
Yeah. Could you add a bit of peppery cress to that, do you think?
Oh yeah, watercress, landcress, definitely. Yeah, and you can also put in the courgette flower if you wanted to use the flower as well. We tend to keep our flowers on the courgette plants because obviously the plants produce the courgettes, so we tend to do it that way.
No, that sounds very, 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 very yummy. And nice for the summer to have something that's got a bit of warmth to it, but isn't too heavy, that you don't want a big heavy stew, but you want to eat some cooked vegetables in the summer. And this is a lovely way of doing it. And the pine nuts and the seeds on top just sound lovely with a little bit of extra crunch. So yeah, that is good. Feel free to cook that for me anytime you like. I will happily eat that. Thank you, Natasha. Okay, so we're going to delve a little bit more into the food philosophy now with Gareth and look at what food means to us. So talk us through that, please, now, Gareth.
So if you think about it, we're all going to have our own beliefs around food and cooking and eating. And these beliefs are going to be kind of like the filter that we look at it through. Um, so if I was to ask you a question, and this is just something for you to ponder internally, and just answer with the first two or three words that come up. If I was to say to you, food is, there will be a word that comes up. And that word or that kind of like saying for you is going to be your filter. I've chosen, because it's my food brain, and based on a lot of time that I've spent with people, it falls into these filters basically fall into kind of like six sections. So the first one is that food is frightening, or cooking is frightening, or eating is
Oh.
frightening. For some people that have, disordered eating, when they look at food, they're going to be put off. They're going to be afraid. Or if I eat too much of this, then that's going to happen. If I don't eat enough, that's going to happen. And every time they look at a plate of food or they think about eating, they're going to be filled with anxiety and that sort of stuff. So that's going to be the filter that they look at it in. Some signs that your relationship with food could be frightening is, if you have, if I eat this, then that will happen and I'll have to do X, Y, Z. Or you worry about either gaining or losing weight, so you don't look forward to eating times. A lot of people with the food is frightening food philosophy, they're gonna have a little bit of a kind of like distorted body image. So they're going to look at themselves and think, oh, I need to lose a few pounds or I need to gain a few pounds. Um, every now and then, when we feel hungry, it makes us feel uncomfortable because we're not sure how we're going to eat. So that's the food one. The next one that that some people have, and it can fall into this category, is food is functional. Food is purely a means to an end. It's designed to be practical, and useful. You know that a balanced diet is important, but you're not too obsessed about it. So you know that you need to eat this regularly, that sort of thing. You have kind of like a basic understanding of the importance of nutrition. That good food, but also people that have a food as functional food philosophy tends to eat the same thing over and over again. And even though they get bored with certain foods, they aren't really interested in trying new things to do. So that's that one. The next one, um, food is forced. Um, I know that I have to eat, so I eat. For me, I have a history in the past of eating disorders. I was treated in rehab for an eating disorder. I then had to kind of like relearn how to eat again. So a lot of this is kind of like based on my own experience and how I've grown to have the relationship with food. But for some people, eating is really forced. Cooking and eating feels like a chore. It's like,
Mm.
oh, I have to cook again, or I have to eat again. And it brings you kind of like almost no enjoyment. You just eat for the sake of eating because you know that it eats. Um, you find it difficult to go out for meals with people because, there's that whole challenge. The next one, like I say, there's six of them. Food is feelings. I think a lot of people can relate to this. I eat for emotions. Um, what I eat is heavily dependent on how I feel in any given time. And sometimes, if I'm happy, then I'll eat certain things. If I'm sad, then I'll eat certain things. This can often lead to overeating because our search for that happiness gets bigger and bigger, and we need to eat more and more in order to achieve the same level of eating. The next one, and this is kind of like one that, we kind of like strive for, is that food is fun. We get a lot of, for me now, I have moments in my life, especially when I'm cooking for other people, where food is a lot of fun. I get a lot of enjoyment of kind of like playing with the ingredients and creating new things and coming up with new recipes and that sort of stuff. You know, you appreciate food and you have kind of like a high level of respect for it. Like for me, when I go to a restaurant, it doesn't really matter what restaurant I go to. I really look at it with a sense of fun, like someone put that food together for me. So, how I enjoy it is up to me. People with the food is fun philosophy will find cooking therapeutic, will find it helpful and mindful. And then the last one is food is fanatical. So these can be for people who are almost like obsessed with a certain diet. You can look at people, intermittent fast, and I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with it because everyone's going to have their own food philosophy that fits for him. But sometimes we can be too fanatical. We worry about our calories, we worry about our macros and our micros, we worry about when we eat and how we eat. It's got to be like none of this or all of that or whatever it is. So those are kind of like the 6 basic fundamental, philosophies. So when I look at my food and I say to myself, food is whatever, it's really going to kind of like have an influence on how I eat and enjoy things. So that's where the food philosophy basically comes from.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Before you'd gone through those and you said food is, the first thing I thought of was delicious. Because I just really like food and I like
Yeah,
eating food. So I don't know if I would be in the fun category, but I don't think any of the other ones really
yeah,
resonate with
that
me.
would fit into
Yeah.
that would fit into the fun, because when food is fun, we do enjoy it. Um, and a
Mm.
lot of times, and this can be quite confronting for some people, somebody will say to me, "Oh no, food is fun," but their physical body is going to communicate something different. So
Mm.
we naturally have kind of like a physical appearance of our food philosophy. So in the past, because for me, food was very frightening and food was very forced, I was really, really underweight and I was really, really unhealthy. But I would say to people, no, no, I'm eating fine, I'm enjoying my food, da 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 da, but my body was communicating a different thing. So we can kind of look at it on 2 levels. Um, is my food philosophy reflected in my state of well-being?
Mm. And can people be more than one of those? If so, if
Oh,
they're kind of thinking, oh, I'm a bit of number one, I'm a bit of number three, it's kind of
yeah,
somewhere. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. We're going to have a predominant one. Um, but then consciously or maybe subconsciously, every now and then we'll flip to another one depending on situations. But when, like what we were saying at the beginning with the permaculture principle, how we adapt to change, when we understand what is going on, and awareness is the key, we can kind of like look at it and make changes and say, oh, or maybe I'm having a bit too much fun now, so I need to be a little bit more fanatical about my food, or maybe I need to inject a little bit of fear into it. It's not about going from one to the other. It's about kind of like sort of, we can look at it at the other side. If I'm a bit too fanatical about my food, then maybe I need to inject a little bit of fun into it.
Mm. No, I get that as well because I think if I'm enjoying my food too much, I just eat way too much and then I just
Yeah.
start feeling sick. So then there's health issues that come on board then as well. And my stomach says, no, you've had way too much sourdough toast today. This is not a good idea. It's time to step away from the toaster, Chris. Move on with your afternoon. But I can just literally before this podcast, I was just eating toast So you've interrupted my fingers are still slightly greasy from all the butter, but I like to butter both sides because then you get
Both
extra
sides.
butteriness. Oh
Wow.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, all melted and delicious. It's really nice. Making me hungry again. Well, thank you for that, Gareth. That was really insightful, actually. And I think a lot of people will find that that's helped them understand what their relationship and their philosophy is when it comes to food. And
Thank you.
yeah,
If
understanding
people,
yourself is the first step, isn't it?
yeah, if people do want to find out more, I have recently created a group on Facebook, and it's called the Unorthodox Cooking Academy. So people can come along and join there as well. So I'll be sharing more about the food brain and that sort of stuff in there.
Amazing. Yeah, have a look for that. Thank you, Gareth.
Thank you.
You're listening to A Good Life at Soul Haven, and it's time for us to give you some inspiration for the rest of the week as we pick your cards to give you a theme to think about. And we're here with the artist himself. Gareth has his pack of cards. Are these in English this time, or have we got the Spanish
No,
version?
we got the Spanish ones. We're in Spain, so we're going to do the Spanish ones. So I'm going
Okay.
to shuffle them up.
You'll have to
And
be our interpreter.
Ooh.
Ooh.
So we've got this one, and you can look at it there, and it says sencillez, and sencillez is simplicity. So I think it's really nice how it relates to what we've been speaking about, Natasha, with that really amazing and quite simple recipe, but also kind of like looking at what you are eating and trying not to make it too complicated, just focusing on the simplicity of it and the joy of it, because sometimes because of how we've been taught to eat and because of our food philosophy, it kind of like complicates things. But when we break it down and apply more simplicity to it, it's a lot easier.
Yeah, I think for me, simplicity is the key to just breaking down any issues or any situations in your life. And sometimes things seem daunting because you've overcomplicated them in your head. And once you've kind of simplified things, and you can just writing down lists is good as well, because then you can kind of see that actually I've written down 10 things that are bothering me, but 4 of those are the same thing, really.
Yeah.
And then you can just focus your energy on what's actually important, and it's a lot more manageable. Just and also breaking tasks down into
Yeah.
simple steps and just focusing on one thing at a time is key. But your brain and your mental capacity can't cope with things that are just
No.
too much all at once, I think.
I think that's why I love what we do at Soul Haven with Ploughing the Mind, because the mind is a garden that is so often filled with weeds. We spend more time weeding our garden than we do weeding our mind. But like you say, when you write things down and you kind of like make it simple, it can be, with a little bit of work, a really beautiful garden. And it is simple. May not be easy, but it is simple.
Yeah. Natasha, what are your thoughts on our card?
I love that. I love that card. Thank you, Gareth, for picking that. Because I do say, oh, it's too complicated. I don't understand. And that's one of my patterns that I do have, and it's been highlighted to me these last couple of weeks. Oh, that's way too complicated. I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to do that. Whereas actually bringing it back to the simplicity of things, and even like reading the instructions. So I've done a couple of different programs. I've done a couple of different apps and having to download a couple of things onto my laptop this week. And IT isn't my strongest point, and I get overwhelmed with it. And I run to Samuel and go, oh, you've got to help me, you're the IT man. Whereas actually bringing it back to the simplicity, yeah, look in the instructions. So yeah, writing it down, reading it, and also being mindful of how I speak. It doesn't have to be complicated. Oh, this is simple. I just read instructions. So yeah, good reminder. Thank you.
It's fine when the instructions are in English.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank goodness for Google Translate.
Yeah.
Hey?
It's amazing. No, we've got an air conditioner in our studio, and we got it cheap online, and all of the all of the buttons have just got Chinese symbols next to them. It means nothing at all. And Google just made them all turn into English, but it still doesn't make much sense because one of the buttons says the wind, which is really nice, but it's all very philosophical. Press this button for the wind. And it is nice. It makes kind of a breeze come out of the aircon unit.
I love that.
But the Chinese have a wonderful way because their writing and their language kind of informs the way that they think about things, and because a lot of it is symbolic.
Yeah.
So they think about things symbolically rather than literally, and I don't speak Chinese, so I don't know for sure, but that's what I heard, and it's nice that kind of comes across when you translate things, because it just gives you the literal translation of something that's more about an idea than an actual phrase, which is quite clever.
Yeah, I love that.
I like that idea, but it's nice to just have a wind button. It just makes that happen, a nice soft breeze, especially on a week like this. Thank you very much for your time, Natasha and Gareth, and we're going to be back again next time, where we will have more from the Soul Haven Garden and another recipe of the week. And you've set the bar high this week, Natasha, so I don't know what you're going to follow that up with, but
I know.
I think it's going to be something involving cress by the sounds of things.
I think so. Maybe
Yeah.
we'll bring in the land cress. Yeah.
It's going to be Natasha's cordon bleu cress sandwich.
Oh,
2 ingredients.
with butter on both sides.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, it doesn't really work for a sandwich because you just get sticky fingers. But with toast, somehow you can just hold the corners and enjoy. But yeah, that is my top tip. But make sure that you're on a surface where the drips aren't going to destroy your carpet.
Eating like that is.
Yeah, you do have drip issues
Yeah.
with a double-sided toast. Thank you very much, guys. Have a great weekend. And we
you
will
too.
see you again next time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for speaking.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Chris. See you soon.
Bye.